What is up guys, Delboy here. So this weekend we have a rather intriguing middleweight title fight, and I'm not talking about Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez. I've already made a prediction video for that fight. It's on my channel, you can find that. I will put the link in the description below. But I'm talking about Billy Joe Saunders versus Willie Monroe Jr. I think this is an intriguing fight. It's a fight between two tricky southpaws with boxing ability and slickness. Potentially, it could be quite a good boxing match for the purists, but also it could potentially be a bit of a stinker, you know. Both of these guys like to sort of fight on the back foot, pop the jab, use their legs, and use their sort of counter-punching ability. They are similar in that aspect. But let's talk about both fighters quickly. The champion, Billy Joe Saunders, comes into this fight with a record of 24 wins, 0 defeats, 0 draws, and 12 of those 24 wins coming by way of stoppage. Willie Monroe Jr. comes into this fight with a record of 21 wins, 2 defeats, 0 draws, 6 of those 21 wins coming by way of stoppage. And Willie Monroe's only defeats came to Gennady Golovkin and early on in his career against Darnell Boone, who's a sort of a well-known journeyman. But since the Golovkin defeat, you know, he has bounced back. He beat John Thompson, and he also beat Gabriel Rosado in a easy victory. So he has bounced back since that Golovkin defeat. It's an interesting fight. It really is. Let's also quickly talk about the physical dimensions. Billy Joe Saunders is 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. I can't confirm that 73 inches because there's no real sort of set source online, but that's what I see most people say. His reach is around 73 inches. Willie Monroe Jr. is 5'10" with a 74-inch reach. So Billy Joe Saunders is slightly taller, but Willie Monroe Jr. has a slightly longer reach. So in terms of physical attributes, they're relatively similar. And they're both southpaws, obviously, and they're both boxers. So stylistically, these guys match up quite well. I think when I look at both guys, Billy Joe Saunders, to me, puts his shots together better. You know, when he throws combinations, he's more accurate. He's more technically efficient, in my opinion. Willie Monroe Jr. is a guy who likes to throw one jab, and fight on the back foot. Look for that one straight left behind a jab. You know, he's very, not one pace, that's the wrong word, but he gets set in his way and he fights the same way, you know, just on the outside, pop in a jab, and the straight punches behind it. Billy Joe Saunders can mix it up. He can go to the body. You know, he's a better combination puncher than Willie Monroe Jr. Overall, I think Billy Joe Saunders' offensive game is more varied than Willie Monroe's, in my opinion. You know, Willie Monroe can put his shots together. We saw in stages of the Golovkin fight he actually did that. You know, he actually stood in front of Golovkin and let his hands go. Now, some people say that's because Golovkin let him. I'm not so sure about that. I personally feel Monroe just had success. So if you stand in front of Monroe, he can let his hands go. But in this type of fight, however, I can't see him doing that. I think he's going to revert to type and play the boxer, pop that jab, keep his punches long, and look for counter opportunities when he can. You know, I think he's going to try to play this as a boxing match with Billy Joe Saunders, and I think he has belief in his skills that he can come out on top. But as mentioned, I do feel in close rounds particularly, I think Billy Joe Saunders, you know, higher activity and his better punch variation and offense will sort of sneak in those rounds, you know. In the low volume rounds where not much is happening, I think Billy Joe Saunders can sneak those rounds based on his more creative output and offense. Having said that, I am concerned for Billy Joe Saunders in one particular area, and that is stamina. We've all said it, you know, that's been a running theme throughout Billy Joe Saunders' entire career. You know, I mean, we've seen fights where Billy Joe Saunders displays excellent boxing ability, blaring hand speed, you know, a great jab, counter punching, you know, putting his shots together, looking really good on the eye, you know, world-class talent. But in those same fights down the line, you see after round 6, 7, 8, he starts to fade, he starts to gas, and that output is not quite the same. That quality of work is not quite the same. We saw it against Andy Lee, against another southpaw, where the first 4 or 5 rounds, Billy Joe Saunders looked different class. He looked amazing. But after that, he started to gas. He started to let Andy Lee back into the fight. And it was only because of those 2 knockdowns that he won that fight. If there was no knockdowns, he would have lost. So stamina is a big question mark. We saw against Eubank Jr. that, again, in the first 6 rounds, he bossed it. He schooled Eubank Jr. But after round 6, Billy Joe's gas tank started to fade, and he let Chris Eubank Jr. back into the fight. We saw that also against Nick Blackwell. We saw it against John Ryder. There's been multiple fights where Billy Joe Saunders' gas tank has started to go, and that's a big worry. That's a concern. And those guys I mentioned, Andy Lee, Chris Eubank Jr., they didn't get back into the fight because they sort of found a way to get back into it. They only got back into the fight because Billy Joe Saunders has terrible stamina, because they didn't change anything. Eubank Jr. was still doing the exact same thing as he did in round 1. It was just the fact that Billy Joe Saunders' gas tank was running empty, and he was more of a stationary target. Therefore, Chris Eubank Jr. had more success. When Billy Joe is fresh, he's some sort of he's a great fighter. When he's fresh, when he's fit. But I question his gas tank. And Willie Monroe Jr., he has got a good gas tank. I saw that against Gabe Rosado. He was the same in the first bell to the last bell. He was consistent. He was economical with his shots, and he managed the pace extremely well. He did the same against John Thompson, So Willie Monroe maybe has better stamina, potentially has better stamina. So Billy Joe, to me, he does need to try and work that body early to make up for that deficit. Having said that, I have been seeing a few pictures of Billy Joe Saunders in camp. He is now with Dominic Ingle, and I have to say, he does look in tremendous shape. Some of the best shape I've seen him in for quite some time. So that's a positive sign. Having said that though, looking in shape and being in shape is 2 totally separate things. So maybe, even if Billy Joe Saunders looks in great shape, maybe he's still going to have that cardio issue. Because sometimes, some people just have naturally better gas tanks than others. That's just the reality. So it's going to be interesting to see what Billy Joe's gas tank is like. That's one potentially interesting thing about this fight, and that's one reason I actually think Willie Monroe has to start well. He has to take a couple of early rounds, because he can't afford to let Billy Joe build up a head of steam, get some rounds under his belt, and then sort of chase a fight in the second half. If he wins rounds early, and Billy Joe then gasses late, he's got a great chance. And I think Willie Monroe has the ability to win rounds early. He's got a great jab. He's great on his feet, It's an interesting fight. I think Willie Monroe can make it difficult. I think he can make it awkward. But I think he needs to be more active, in letting his hands go. I really do. Because in terms of a technical ability, I don't think there's too much in it. I really don't. In terms of defense and whatnot. But it's just the fact that Billy Joe's a bit more creative with his offense. I personally think this fight is going to be extremely close. I think it could divide people. I think some people could say Monroe won. Some people are going to say Billy Joe won. I think it's going to be extremely close. But I think Billy Joe is going to eke out a close decision in this fight. Potentially because of hometown judging. That's the type of fight I see. I hope to see Billy Joe put on a good performance and then fight the winner of Golovkin versus Canelo. But I see this one being close. I see this one being competitive. I see it being a good boxing match. So if you're a purist, I think this fight's for you. Good fight. I'm looking forward to it, It's overshadowed because of Golovkin versus Canelo, but I think this is a good fight. I think Willie Monroe is an underrated contender, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he matches up with Billy Joe Saunders. But ultimately, I've got Billy Joe Saunders by a close decision. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be tight. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm going to be wrong. Maybe Billy Joe is going to get him out of there early and put on a great show. Maybe Willie Monroe can eke out a points win. Who knows what's going to happen, but it's a great fight. I'm looking forward to it. It's the type of fight Billy Joe needed. What do you guys think about this fight? How do you see it going? Peace.